Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 30-Minute Gospel. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host as we open and study the Bible together. I'll be reading from the King James Version, but feel free to use whichever translation that best suits you. I simply recommend choosing a version that does not remove verses from God's holy word. Each video will be a biblical teaching of 30 minutes or less. My material is completely 100% free, so you can share these videos with family members, co-workers, friends, or anyone you know who either needs to hear the Word of God or wants to study in a casual setting. The gospel is free to all, so I will not accept any donations, gifts, or beg viewers for money. Please give to your local church or Christian organization of your choosing. You can reach out to me with questions or comments at 30-Minute Gospel with Chris, but please keep your message respectful and cordial. Remember also to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy the Christian content presented here. You can also follow me on Facebook at 30-Minute Gospel with Chris. Well, welcome again, everybody. We are studying let me just close these windows back here. We are studying the Table of Nations. We're now on the third or fourth video, somewhere in there. And when we last left off, we were talking about Nimrod and how he had built those cities. It was kind of like the last of the Cush people mentioned, and he was a descendant of Cush, and he erected Nineveh and Babylon, who ended up being two of the major cities that were thorns in the sides of Israel. We talked about how Ham's descendants were. Definitely, a lot of them were the thorns in his side. So, we're going to talk about another one of Cush's sons, Mizraim. Mizraim is the Hebrew word for Egypt. So their descendants settled in Egypt. Now, the people of Egypt today are probably most of them not the descendants of Mizraim, because the Ishmaelites, a lot of the Muslims are Arabic people, migrated into Egypt over time as they took over northern Africa. So they kind of control it. Probably most of Africa, and even like, for example, Hagar was probably black. Okay, was more than likely black. Ishmael was kind of like a mixture. Semet, like I said, he's a mixture of Shem and Ham. So there is, he's kind of a mixture of a Semite and a Hamite. So he's probably half, probably olive skin, dark skin mixture. Okay, so the children of Mizraim, it says in verse 13 of Genesis 10, it says, and Mizraim begot Ludum. Okay, Ludum, their descendants were Egyptian or northern Africa. They are mentioned several places in the Bible. First, they are mentioned in Jeremiah. We'll start with Isaiah 66:19. So if you go to Isaiah 66:19. Isaiah 66:19 says this. It says, and I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them into the nations, to Tarshish, Pul, and Lud. Blood, that's them, that draw the bow to Tubal and Javan, to the isles afar off that have not heard my fame, neither have seen my glory. They shall declare my glory among the Gentiles. Okay, so there he's mentioned Isaiah. His descendants are mentioned again in Jeremiah 46:19. So we go to Jeremiah 46:19 says, O thou daughter dwelling in Egypt, furnish thyself to go into captivity, for naught shall be waste and desolate without inhabitant. Okay, so that when it says, O daughter dwelling in Egypt, that's the word Lud. That's where it is. Ezekiel 27:10. Ezekiel 27:10 says this: They of Persia and of Lud and of Phut were in thine army, thy men of war. They hanged the shield and helmet in thee. They set forth thy comeliness. So there's the land of Lud mentioned again, and 30 in Ezekiel 35 also mentions them as well. So you can see that they're mentioned several places in the Bible. 35,000 says Ethiopia and Libya and and Lydia, and all the mingled people, and Chub, and the men of the land, that is the league, shall fall with them by the sword. Okay, so there it is, men. Lydia, that's them. Okay, and Chub. All right, so that's them. All right, so those are their people mentioned again. And Anamim. Okay, Anamim. They possibly are Egyptian people. Um, a lot of them have been identified as an indigenous people located in Alexandria, Egypt. Okay, so that's who they are. They don't know quite yet, but they've been always been associated with this indigenous people that live in Alexandria, Egypt. Okay, and it says and Lahabim. Okay, Lahabim's his descendants are believed to be the same as the Rebu or Lubum tribes mentioned in Egyptian records. Maybe where Libya gets its name. Okay, so Lahabium is where Libya probably it may get its name from. Of course, Libya's descendants are Put, which they're going to talk about. Okay, and Naphtuam. Okay, Naphtuam. This name Naphtuam is of Egyptian origin, meaning people of the Delta, the Nile. City of Noph, Memphis, that was in Lower Egypt. So there was a city called Noph, which is also called Memphis. This part of Lower Egypt, and it says people of the Delta, that is the Nile. Okay, okay. If you know anything about Egypt, Upper Egypt was actually in the south. Lower Egypt was in the north because the Nile flows from south to north. Okay, so the Naphtali people mean people of the delta. Well, the delta is at the end of the river, so that would be in the northern parts of Egypt. Okay, and there was the city of Memphis was up there in those northern parts, which was also known as the city of Noph. So they've been associated with those people. Okay, so I hope you guys can see that. Alrighty, and it says, and in verse 14 it says, and Parthrusim. Okay, Parthrusim. These people settled in the city known as Pathros, which is in Upper Egypt. Okay, and it says, and Casluhim, out of whom came the Philistim. Okay, the Casluhim settled in Egypt, but they later migrated to Caphtor, which is an island off Crete. Okay, so the Philistines actually come from this lineage. Okay, the people of the Philistines are a kind of like a mixture people. The people of the Greeks are a mixture people between Japheth and the descendants of Cush. Okay, so the Philistines were of Greek origin. All right, the Philistines and the Phoenicians are kind of almost cousins to each other, and they're of Greek origin. But the Philistines come from the Egyptian people. All right. And so these people settled in Caphtor, which is the island off of Crete, which is near there. But there were also other people, the descendants of Japheth, who also settled in the islands of Crete and the islands around Greece as well. So there's a nice little there's a mixture between Japhethites and Hamites in those regions. Okay, so so there. Okay, so then now so those are the sons of Mizraim. So you can see they settled in Egypt. That's why the Hebrew word for Egypt is Mizraim, because his descendants all settled in Egypt. All right, and as I said, they're different than what the Egyptians are today. All right, now it says, and Canaan begot Sidon. Okay, so now we're in the sons of Canaan. So this is verse 15. And Canaan begat Sidon, the firstborn. Okay, so Sidon, his descendants were the Sidonians. The city was named for them. They intermingled with the Phoenicians and traded with them. Jesus visited there and spoke about them in Matthew 11:21 through 23. As you know, there was two cities, Tyre and Sidon. Jesus mentions those cities several times in Tyre and Sidon. Okay, they were kind of sister cities. The Sidon were the Sidonians. Okay, they intermingled with the Phoenicians. All right, And so the Phoenicians we talked about were, Jezebel and these people. They were more of the descendants of Japheth. So the Sidonians are descendants of Canaanites. They kind of mixed in together. And so you see what you have there is, once again, we talked about this. He talks about the city of Sidon. The city of Sidonians are descendants of Ham. You have the city of Tyre. Tyre is run by the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians are descendants of Japheth. And then right near them is the city of Jerusalem. Who owns that? That's the Shemites. So you have three sons of Noah. There they are, all represented, all talked about in that one area. Okay, as you can see, they're all kind of there together, getting ready for the birth of the Messiah and all of this. And the Messiah comes and they're all there present during his ministry, his death, burial, and resurrection. Okay, so you can see that. Jesus visited there and spoke about them many a times. Okay, and it says, and Heth. Okay, Heth, his descendants were what we know as the Hittites. Okay, the Hittites, many of y'all know them from history, but the Hittites first settled in the area known as Asia Minor. Okay, Asia Minor is called Turkey today, which I kind of find funny because the descendants of Ham, some of the descendants of Ham settled in Turkey. I don't know. It's just kind of funny to me. Maybe it's funny to y'all. It's like Thanksgiving over there, you know. Uh, but they settled in Asia Minor. Okay, the Hittites were a very aggressive group of people, very warlike people. They were the ones that kind of introduced iron that historians believe introduced iron into Mesopotamia, because they lived in those mountainous regions of Asia Minor. There's a lot of coal up there, and of course you need coal to make iron. There's iron ore up there, and so they were able to make stronger weapons versus the copper and bronze at weapons of the Mesopotamians. And so they were able to come down and eventually conquer those areas. And so the Hittites, though, were also known for their battle against the Egyptians at the Battle of Kadesh, where they fought Ramses II. It's believed by historians to be the first peace treaty that was ever signed was between the Hittites and the Egyptians. It was actually, that Battle of Kadesh was the tie. The Egyptians lied on their pyramid wall, on their walls about that fight, where they said, "Oh, Ramses II dominated them, and all they were begging." No, the Hittites have a whole different recollection of that battle, and the peace treaty was signed between them. And you can see that stone, or I think it's stone or clay tablet thing of their peace treaty. It's in a museum somewhere. And so it was the Battle of Kadesh, but his descendants were the Hittite people, and you hear about them. The Hittite people, Abraham bought the cave of Machpelah to bury his wife Sarah for his burial tomb from the Hittites. And eventually, the Hittites are a group of people that God commands the Jews to kick out of the land of Canaan because they are wicked. And so he kind of tells them to do that. So that's who Heth's descendants are the Hittites. Okay. Now, what it also talks about here is, if you read this, it says here, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgasite, and the Hivite, and the Arkite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite, and afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread about. Okay, so Canaan, all of these people are the groups of people that settled in the land of Canaan that eventually the Jews have to kick out. All right, most of their descendants are gone now. It says in verse 19, it says, "And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah, and Zeboim, even into Lasha." Okay. These are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. So as you can see there, it said unto Gaza. So they were there. The Gaza was, of course, a Philistine city. Gaza is still the area of Gaza. Most of y'all know this, where the Palestine, a lot of the Palestinians live today. It's still around. The Sidon, as you can hear in there, these are them. Okay. All right. So we're going to move to the sons of Shem. It says, unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder, even to him who were children born. It says, verse 22, the children of Shem, Elam. Okay? Elam, his descendants settled in southwest Iran, or in Persia. All right, Persia or southwest Iran. So a lot of the descendants of Shem are the most wide variety, which we talked about. They're Asian people and also the Semitic people, Ishmaelites, Israelites, all those groups, the old the Persians, all those people of that area. Eventually, a lot of them become descendants of the Ishmaelites, the Arabs. There, but they settle in southwest Iran. He's mentioned in Genesis chapter 14. Okay, Genesis chapter 14. It says his descendants are mentioned in there. It's let me see here. Oh yeah, it says Chedorlaomer, king of Elam. These were Barab Sodabottom. Yeah, these are all about the people that came out to war with against Abraham and all these fighting wars, and that's when Melchizedek comes in. Yeah, so they had Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, is mentioned there as well. So that's Persia, and it's also mentioned in Jeremiah 49. Let me go over there. Jeremiah chapter 49. They are mentioned in. Let me go down here. Yeah, they're mentioned here as one of the groups of people that is going to be destroyed by God. And because of everything, he's going on talking about Damascus and all of these other areas. And Elam is one of the ones mentioned in here. Yeah, it says in 46:36, and upon Elam will I bring the four winds from the four quarters of heaven, and will scatter them toward all those winds, and there shall be no nation whither the outcast of Elam shall not come. For I will cause Elam to be dismayed before their enemies, and before them that seek their life, and I will bring evil upon them, even my fierce anger, saith the Lord, and I will send the sword after them till I have consumed them. And I will set my throne in Elam, and will destroy from thence the prince and the princesses, saith the Lord. It says, but it shall come to pass in the latter days that I will bring again the captivity of Elam, saith the Lord. So there is a prophecy against his people, and it's probably what he's talking about is the land of Iran, probably Persia in the latter days. It's talking about the Gog Magog war. Okay, alrighty. So it says here Elam and Asher. Okay, Asher. His descendants, Asher's descendants, are the Assyrians. Founded the city of Asher on the Tigris River. Their descendants are the Assyrians. Although Nimrod founded the city of Nineveh, Asher took over the area where it was located. They found like I said, they found the city of Asher on the Tigris River as it flows up north, because Assyria is where modern day Syria is, kind of like at the end of the Tigris River. And its famous king was Ashurbanipal. Okay, the Assyrians' famous king is Ashurbanipal. He created the world's first library. Okay, Ashurbanipal created the first library. So just so y'all know that, I know a lot of school children are not happy about that. I used to teach that because they didn't like that. Okay, and all right, so the next one says Arphaxad. All right, Arphaxad. His descendants are the Israelites and Ishmaelites through his son Salah. Okay, so you're going to find some of these descendants people they're going to be talking about are Ishmaelite, are the forefathers of the Ishmaelites and the Israelites. Okay, so Arphaxad through Salah, through his son Salah are comes all of the comes Abraham, and through Abraham comes Isaac and Ishmael. Okay, it says, and Lud. All right, Lud, his descendants were skilled archers, mentioned in uh, Jeremiah 46:9. So if you go to Jeremiah 46:9. Jeremiah 46:9 says, "Come up, ye horses, and rage, ye chariots, and let the mighty men come forth, the Ethiopians and the Libyans, and handle that shield, and the Lydians that handle the bow." So you can see those are the descendants of Lud, the Libyans. That's who they are. Okay. Uh, are they are also, I mean, I'm sorry, yeah, the Lydians, or the Libyans, or the Lydians, I'm sorry, not the Libyans, the Lydians are them. They are the Lydians. That's in modern day Turkey. Ludum settled in Asia Minor. Okay, so a lot of these people settled in modern day Turkey and in Asia Minor. All right, from Lud. All right, and it says and Aram. Okay, Aram, his descendants are the Arameans. Naaman, mentioned in 2 Kings 5, he was an Aramean. He had to dip in the Jordan River 7 times to be healed of leprosy. Many of y'all know that story. And so he was a descendant of Aram. They created the Aramaic language. The Aramaic language is what Jesus spoke in the time in the time of his life. That's what most people spoke. He was speaking Aramaic, and he probably knew Hebrew and Latin probably because he had to speak with the Romans as well. And Aram, the Aramean nation, is in modern day Syria. So that's where they are. Syria up there. Syria is where the Assyrians and that northern part of area. All right. It says, all right, and the children of Aram, the descendants settled in the land of Uz. Uz. You all know that from Job chapter 1. There once was a man from the land of Uz named Job. And so Job was from the land of Uz, so he may be a descendant of Uz. They founded the city of Damascus, which was the capital which was a major city within the Assyrian Empire. The city of Damascus is still around. Okay, as you know, it's now the capital of Syria. So Uz was his descendants founded the city of Damascus, according to tradition. Okay, and Hull, these people may have settled in present day Armenia. They're not sure about his descendants. And Gether, the people could be the Bactrians. They're an ancient Iranian civilization located in Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. They also could be the Akarnania people of Western Greece. Okay, so they could be these people as well. They're just not sure. Okay, and Mash. His descendants settled in Mesopotamia, which Mesopotamia is modern day Iraq, near Mount Massius. Okay, so Mount Massius was named for the descendants of Mash. That's why it's named that. Okay. All right, and it says, and Arphaxad begat Salah. Salah, his lineage is the Hebrew people and the Ishmaelites, like we talked about. We're going to talk about his children, who are also the forefathers there. All right. It says, and Salah begat Eber. Eber. It's as I said, Eber is the ancestor of the Israelites and Ishmaelites, and it's believed not to have helped. Eber is believed to not have helped at the Tower of Babel, so his tongue was not confused. Okay, so they believe, if you know anything about the Jewish people, all right, if you know anything about them, they believe that the Hebrew language was the original language Adam and Eve spoke, and was the original language of the world until it was confused up. And so they believe that Eber kept the Hebrew language going after the Tower of Babel because he was the only one there who did not participate with its construction. Okay, and because he was the remnant left over of the Hebrew language that continued on after the Tower of Babel was destroyed by God and the languages were confused and the people were forced out. That's an interesting theory. I don't know. It could be, but it's just interesting to kind of look at and kind of know. All right. Well, we'll leave it here. I think in the next video we will finish up the whole table of nations. And I hope, like I've said, that you guys are getting a lot out of this and knowing where everybody settled over there. And I thank you all again for tuning in. And I will leave you with this. Remember, just as Theodore Roosevelt once said, a thorough knowledge of the Bible is worth more than a college education. God bless you all.